get ready for one more sale. Inspiring you with ideas through powerful and engaging interviews with top performers of their field. Now, join us as we discuss techniques and strategies of the coolest and most successful people on the planet.
Check out our sponsors, Direct Mortgage Loans. Listen, these guys are committed. They provide outstanding service. I know personally because I work with them. They are also licensed in 22 states, so make sure you check them out and see if they can do work with you. Listen, they not only will take amazing care of your clients, they're based on building lifelong relationships with our buyers, our sellers, as well as us as realtors. They're looking for partners, and they're providing the best resources, training, and knowledge the industry has to offer. So if you're interested in partnering up with somebody that's really innovative, check them out. Their website is directmortgageloans.com, or you can reach them at 888-604-2525. David Hill here with one more sale path to mastery, episode number 34. And as always, bringing you the best of the best. And this week, no shortage, we have Stacy Alcorn with us, who built one of the top real estate companies in New England. She shares some amazing stories with us because, guys, listen to this. She built her company based on essentially just interviewing top talent like CEOs, authors, just really successful people. And by doing that, created that network. So she shares some amazing stories that she got from those interviews, plus her own story of going from, all her people leaving her to just, being in a dark place to, working through that. And then again, building one of the top real estate companies in the area. So it's a great interview. Just really, really inspirational. She talks to us about her huge, massive goals and why it's important to have a vision board and some phenomenal book recommendations. And guys, again, davidsfreebook.com. For any book that's talked about on this podcast, you can go get yourself a free Audible on audible.com, davidsfreebook.com. So again, hey, listen, enjoy, share. If it's worthy, give us a review. Always ask for a review, man. It really, really helps with our listenership. So enjoy it, share it, have a phenomenal rest of your day. All right, guys. Well, today I'm with Stacy Alcorn, who is an author, a realtor. She owns a well-respected real estate company called Lear. She's author of two amazing books. Her first book, which I believe is Tuned In, and her latest book, which is Reach. So, hey, Stacy, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on your program.
Yeah, definitely. Appreciate you spending some time with us. Yeah. First off, fill us in on some of the blanks. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your real estate company, your book.
Sure. Basically, for the last 20 years, I've been somehow involved in real estate all along. Started in mortgages right in college. In order to pay my way through school, I had to get a job. So I started in mortgages as a copy machine girl. Worked my way up to a mortgage processor where I learned how to do mortgages on the back end, which led me into real estate flipping. So by the age of 19, I had purchased my first home and then flipped a whole bunch of real estate, like 24 houses, in order to pay my way through school. Eventually buying a real estate company and have been growing that for the last 16 years. First as a franchise for 14 years and then rebranded 2 years ago to my own independent brand. So still growing. We have about 22 offices, 400 plus agents throughout New England. And in addition to that, I love writing. So I've been writing for about 8 to 10 years for Huffington Post, Entrepreneur Magazine. And also in between there, I became an attorney. So I do a bunch of things, but my main business is real estate and writing.
Wow, good for you. Well, it sounds like you've definitely been around the real estate world, that's for certain.
Yep.
So let's talk about your book, Tuned In, which is the most recent book. Tell us the essence of the book.
So Tuned In is the older book. Tuned In is a parable. So Tuned In I originally wrote when the market was terrible, and it was just a parable about an agent who had built his business, and then through the tough market, his business dwindled, and a brand new agent came in the market and started doing really well, and how they ended up teaming up and learning from one another. The more recent book is Reach.
Reach, yes. My apologies on that. You're right.
No, that's okay. So Reach it's Reach with an exclamation point. And what Reach is, it's twofold. So number one, it's going after massive dreams. So I always tell people in any business or anything they want in life, if your dream doesn't scare you, it's not big enough. So reach is number one about going after a massive dream. But the second idea behind reach is about building a network, how to build a massive network, an army of followers who are as committed to helping you achieve your dream as you are. So the whole book, Reach, is about how I have manifested big dreams so far in my business and life, and also how I created this massive army or a legion of people that have been committed to helping me achieve my dreams so that I could get to my goals faster.
That's awesome. We're going to talk about that as well. You did say something, too. You said if your dream does not scare you, it's not big enough. Tell us about that.
Yes. I've always looked at my own dreams like I'm always going after something big. For example, when I launched my real estate company, I said, all right, I'm going to build the largest real estate brand in New England. My goal is to help 20,000 families a year buy and sell real estate. And I have a vision of my logo on the back of the green monster at Fenway Park. So that dream scares me. That's a huge goal. But I've found that any dream I've ever made over the last 20 years, by making it so big and so scary, even if you don't hit the dream or the goal, by going after something big, you end up getting really far.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And, you know, I look forward to seeing your name on the green monster as well, and I'm sure it's going to be there. The other thing you talked about is creating the army of followers and networking, Stacy. And I know a little bit of your story is you built a business really from interviews, right? Yeah. Doing a lot of interviews, interviewing people. Now, do you do a podcast as well?
So I do a podcast, basically, and that's not how I started, but basically I fell into all of this by accident, is the first thing I should say. Many years ago, I had read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which is one of my favorite books. And in that book, basically Napoleon Hill had gone out and interviewed the people at the time were the most amazing entrepreneurs, business leaders, etc. in the world, like Andrew Carnegie and Henry Ford. So I read the book, and that's still a go-to book for me when I'm having problems in life or business. But what I learned from the book is I said to myself many years ago, why can't I go out and interview all kinds of cool people and learn how they've built their business and achieved their dreams? So I set out on a journey many years ago to go out and interview people. I've now done somewhere between 250 and 300 interviews of people. Originally, I started doing it because I just wanted to learn from them and take little pieces back into my own business. And that's still a big reason why I do it today. But the other reason that I now do it, which I never even realized when I first started would happen, is many years ago, I started noticing that the people who I had interviewed were so important to the success of my business, because what I found is they started referring me business and they became mentors to me. And these people who were complete strangers who I reached out to and asked if I could interview them so I could write an article about them. I always ask for 30 minutes of their time. I usually set aside a couple hours in my schedule for the interview, but I learned it was like a bonding process. I would walk into an interview as a stranger and I would leave as a really good friend. And many of my friendships today, most of my friendships, I should say, both in business and my personal life, all came from interviews. So what I'll say about it is, having been in sales for 20 years now, I was never an outgoing person. And in the beginning, it was hard for me to go to a networking event and go out of my way to talk to strangers. For me, the interview process was so much easier because it was like an intimate one-on-one, me getting to ask this person questions and develop a friendship. So I've built this massive network of high net worth people, real estate developers, bankers, celebrities, and many of them have helped me grow my business, and they're why I'm where I am today.
That's amazing. And honestly, me doing these podcasts, this is my, I want to say my 25th episode. I've interviewed about 35 people. And obviously I've gotten better at these interviews. So it's helped me become more effective at not just listening, but listening and asking questions.
Yes.
But like you said, creating those relationships. And then after going through and listening to the interview and saying, wow, I just got so many great nuggets from this massively successful person.
Right.
It's almost like you're getting coaching, right?
Oh.
And it's awesome.
Yes, absolutely. And that's like a real key to it. Like I still go back and on my podcast, I listen to those regularly. I reread my articles. When I'm having an issue in my business, I think back and I say to myself, what would Arthur Wynn or Ernie Bach or all these people I've sat with, what would they do? And now I have the luxury, I can also pick up the phone and ask them.
Oh, such a good point. So what do you talk about on these interviews? Take me through, like an abbreviated version of one of these interviews. What does that look like?
When I originally first started doing interviews, and by the way, if anybody follows me on LinkedIn, I did write an article where I put all of my regular interview questions in a blog post on LinkedIn. Originally, when I started interviewing people, I'd go in with a list of questions. So I'd had typewritten questions I would ask.
Yeah.
Now
I have that right in front of me.
Yes. And it's more like conversational. So I don't bring in a list of questions, but really I want to get down to the bottom, like to the heart and soul of who they are and how they built their business. I'm always curious about where they came from. Did they have entrepreneurs in their family? What did their mom and dad do? What was their very first job as a teenager or as a kid? What would they do if they weren't in this career? What do they do for hobbies? Like, I really want to get to know the meat of this person. And sometimes some are easier than others. Some are super transparent and they'll tell you everything. And some people you got to keep digging and digging and you still might not get to the nitty-gritty of that person.
Yeah, it really becomes like an art interviewing people, and it's funny because I've been a scripts. Anybody who knows me knows I'm really, really effective with scripts and dialogues and FSBOs and expired and all that good stuff. But when I started interviewing, I thought, I'll just call people and we'll do an interview, and it was actually a lot more work than I had anticipated. And the first couple interviews, frankly, were just not that good. So, but like anything else, though, it takes practice, and then you just become more effective at listening. Do you have any specific, go-to questions? Like, what's the question that you ask on every interview?
I always ask about their family history. I always ask what they would be doing if they weren't doing this. I always ask them to bring me to the worst day in their career. What happened on that day, and how did they get past it or overcome the challenge? So those are some of the go-to ones I always ask.
I love that question. The worst day in your career. I want to ask you, Stacy, bring us to the worst day in your career.
Yes.
And how did you overcome that?
Okay, so I rebranded my real estate company 2 years ago. And after having been with the franchise for 14 years, that I loved the franchise. I was coached by the founder of the franchise for much of my career. He was a very important person in my life. And I ended up leaving that franchise for many reasons. So on April 14th, 2014, I stood up in front of a room of 260 real estate agents who worked for me, to whom I had sold the brand, that franchise brand, for 14 years, and said, we're not going to be part of the brand anymore, and shared our tools, training, technology, etc. So the days that followed, and anytime you do something big like that, I knew that not every real estate agent was going to stay with my company. But I will say that the way I've built my business over the last 16 years is I do become very good, close friends with many of the people I work with every day, because that's who I'm around every day. I would say the worst day of my professional career was about a week after that announcement that we were rebranding. I had 8 people who are real estate agents who worked for me for many years. These are 8 people that were really close friends. We had all gone to one another's weddings. We supported each other through having children. They were really close friends. All 8 of them working at my company, and they said that they wanted to get together and to talk. So I went and met all 8 of them, thinking that they were going to say, we support you on the change of the brand, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they were getting together to tell me that they were leaving and going with the old brand and not staying at my company. So I will say, I'll say I have two very different perspectives on it, one then and one today. Back then, I was crushed. I cried. I cried like literally all afternoon. I couldn't even function. And even for the days that followed, I was like, I could not get past losing those 8 people. And what I did every night is I would go home, because I still had to come to work every day and get back to rebuilding the brand, my new brand, and going out and recruiting real estate agents and being excited about the new opportunities. So I'd go home every night and read Think and Grow Rich, only for the fact that for anybody in business, the one key point that you'll learn in Think and Grow Rich is that the success of your business and life has nothing to do with anybody.
Let me just pause you right there, because you said such an important thing. You know, you said, despite all this stuff, despite you going home, losing those 8 people, crying every night, you still showed up and did what you had to do to keep moving forward.
Absolutely.
That is such an important point.
Yes. And so Think and Grow Rich helped me get past all of it. And it was like so devastating. And even for 6 months later, after I would hear their names, I'd be like, it just brought up tears in my eyes just to hear about it. So that was my perspective back then. I felt like betrayed and sad, and there was 200 plus real estate agents that stayed with the company, but to lose those 8, it was terrible. Now today, I have a very different perspective on all of it, and I look at, and I just recently wrote a blog post about it, but it really makes you realize, and I have no ill will. I love all of them, and many of them I've since repaired the relationships, but it really makes you realize that just because any time in life, we all have times where we put up a fight for something. And just because we have to put up a fight, which for me, I had to put up a fight against my old franchise, just because we have to put up a fight for something, we should never automatically assume that our fight is somebody else's fight. Everybody has their own fight that they have to deal with in their own lives. And sometimes people just don't feel like or don't want to go after your fight. So I have just a different perspective. I will say that the rebrand was, for the first 6 months, the worst time in my business and life. And today I look at it that it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I grew as a business person and just as a human, and really did a lot of soul searching so that I could come out better on the other side.
You are listening to One More Sale.
My wife is a huge fan. She gave me a couple questions she wanted me to ask. She said, of all the interviews, and by the way, I do want to thank you as well. You sent us an incredible gift basket for our daughter Samara, so I wanted to personally thank you. I don't think I've been able to do that yet, so I appreciate that. And she had asked, though, of all the interviews, which was the most inspirational to you?
I always say the most important one that I've done is I had interviewed a kid. His name's Dan Cummings, and he's not really a kid anymore. He's in his 30s. But Dan Cummings, when he was 18 or 19 years old, was out on a boat, horsing around with all his friends, drinking, having a good time, dove into the lake off the boat and cracked his spinal cord. So basically, he dove off the boat and he didn't come back up. His friends went and took him out of the water, and he was a quadriplegic. So we live in the Boston area. He went to every doctor, every medical expert in Boston, and they said, you are never going to be able to use your arms or legs again. You are paralyzed from the neck down. Very long story short, he said to me, he's like, never for 1 second. And he's like, I went to hundreds upon hundreds of appointments with medical experts who told me I would never walk or use my arms again. He said, never for even 1 second did I believe that I was never going to walk again. So he walks today. It took many years of rehabilitation. He had to come up with his own program in order to learn how to walk again. But he had a spinal cord injury, was told he would never walk again. He created his own program, like a exercise program, where basically what it was is he'd have to be harnessed into the treadmill because he could not move any of his body. He'd have to have somebody on either side of him move his legs for him like he was walking, and he would have these probes on the side of his legs to monitor the nerves. And he said years and years went by where the nerves showed nothing, that all of this was doing nothing. It was still good for working out his muscles, but the nerves didn't come back. Then all of a sudden, a few years in of doing that same regimen consistently, a nerve came back to life. And he knew then that he was going to walk again. So today, Dan Cummings owns a company called Journey Forward, and he teaches other spinal cord injury patients how to walk again despite what their medical doctors say.
Wow, what an inspirational story that is. And it's a story on perseverance, and it really puts into perspective, Stacy. People get up in the morning and they're bummed out because in the real estate realm maybe they lost a listing to somebody, you know what I mean, or something didn't go your way. And when you think about somebody like Dan Cummings, what he went through, this stuff is just minimal.
Absolutely. And I would say that about every interview I've ever done. For anybody that's thinking about building a network through interviewing, I would say there's been so many occasions where I just felt down about something in my business. And by getting out there, interviewing somebody and really hearing how they built their business and the challenges they went through and their perspective, immediately it puts you in a totally different frame of mind to go out and achieve your dreams.
Who's your dream interview? This is the guy I have to interview.
So it is, and we had talked a couple of weeks ago. I said my number one is Richard Branson, which I've tried for 3 years to get the Richard Branson interview. I will say just recently, through multiple connections I do have a scheduled phone interview with him, which is not my dream. My dream is the actual in-person interview. But first step, I'll take phone for now.
So. Yes, ma'am.
So that's in September, the beginning of September.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So, that one will be good.
All right. You also mentioned Seth Godin, and I know Seth because I'm looking at my vision board right now.
Yes.
And Seth is at the top left corner of my vision board, and because right now, when I created the vision board, I don't know if this is still actually true, but he was the number one sought-out keynote presenter.
Yes.
And that's one of my dream going forward. So that's why he's on my vision board. Tell us a little bit about your story with Seth Godin.
Yes. So I have become, and I continue to hone this skill, but I believe we all have the power to manifest whatever we want in the world. And it's a practice that I've been doing for many years. One of the ways, so it's multiple components to manifesting whatever you want in life. One of the components, as you know, is a vision board. So I always have a vision board. And on my vision board, I put what my future life looks like. It's the people I'm going to meet, the friends I'm going to have, the house, the family, everything that my future is on the vision board. So Seth Godin was on my vision board for several years. And what's interesting about vision board is just by having it on there, you don't need to actually know how the pieces are all going to come together that you're going to end up in front of that person. But just by having it on the vision board and seeing it all the time, it eventually happens. So
I love that.
Seth Godin was on my vision board and for several years. And December of last year, I had signed up to go to the Inman conference in February of 2016. The only reason I wanted to go to the Inman conference was because Seth Godin was going to do a keynote. So I had signed up in December to go to the conference. Well, February rolls around, and February is just a terrible, lousy real estate market. And the market's down, and I just felt like I was just in a negative state of mind. So I never booked my flight ticket to go to the event. So the conference starts on Monday. I could see just on Facebook, some agents have gone there and they're already posting stuff. Tuesday morning, I wake up and I'm still feeling down about the real estate market. And I say to myself, maybe I should just go to this conference for one day just to see Seth Godin, because that maybe it'll kind of lift me out of this funk I'm in. So Seth is speaking on Wednesday morning. Now, anytime I travel, I always reach out to people to ask if I can do some interviews. so I can make some relationships in any market I'm going to. So I book a ticket to New York City. While I'm on the flight, I reach out to people who are like entrepreneurs, CEOs, people I might want to interview. So I end up getting in touch with this girl, Sadia, who is a Facebook friend. And she has this massive hat factory. So she's a young girl. She's in her 30s. And she bought a hat factory in New York City. And now, like, her hats, she does, like, runway shows in Paris and Milan. Her hats are in, like, Neiman Marcus. Like, here's a girl that in 2 short years built an amazing empire. So I reached out to her, said, I'm going to be in New York City for one night. Could I come interview you about how you built your empire? So she said, sure. So I get off my flight. I go and interview this girl. Now, mind you, she's a complete stranger. And so I'm doing the interview with her, and I'm still in a funk about the real estate market and et cetera. Interviewing this girl, and she's amazing. And while I'm interviewing her, I could feel myself being lifted out of the funk already, because she's had like massive challenges, and she starts talking about her art. And she said the reason she bought the hat factory, and by the way, she raised all the money on a Kickstarter campaign to buy the factory, which is crazy, but she had gone to a hat making class, and she was passionate about making hats to the point that she was making them in her house and selling them on Etsy. And she's like, this is my art. This is my art that I offer to the world, is these hats. So while she's saying that, I said, oh, speaking of art, you need to read Seth Godin's The Icarus Deception, because that whole book is about finding your unique art and offering it to the world. So she said, not only did I read the book, she said, Seth gave it to me. He's my personal mentor. And I'm like, wow. You know Seth Godin? She's like, yeah. And I said, oh, my God. I said, I'm here to see Seth Godin speak tomorrow at an event. And I said, he's been on my vision board forever because I wanted to interview him. And she's like, oh, I'll text him right now. And literally the next morning I had breakfast with Seth Godin and interviewed him for an hour before he went on stage for the keynote.
Wow, that's amazing. That really is the universe just, stepping in. And I love what you said. When it's there and that vision board is there, it's in front of you every day. It's in front of me. I'll tell you, it just makes it really easy to just keep moving forward. And like you said, you don't know exactly how it's going to happen. It just ends up happening. So that said, I know in closing, a couple more questions, Stacey, regarding challenges or when times get really tough, which we all do. We all go through the ups and downs of business and life and things happening. How do you deal with that? Like, what's your biggest way to overcome those challenges? How do you keep yourself moving forward?
One big thing for me is reading. I always time block 1 hour a day on my calendar just to read. So I find that reading always takes me out of a funk. Like, just getting my mind going and learning new ways to do business. That I am huge with affirmations. So I have several affirmations I do every morning, just like certain ones have served me well, such as today I'm going to meet the right people at the right time for the betterment of my business. I say that to myself, I don't even know how many times a day, but it happens to me every day that I meet the right people at the right time for the betterment of my business and my life. And the last thing I'll say about that is that the power of manifestation, knowing that the stuff we think about, the stories we tell ourselves, the visions that we see on our vision board or in our heads does come true, is awesome, except when you're manifesting bad stuff. So I know anytime I'm in a funk or super negative, I start manifesting negative stuff like parking tickets. Once you realize and learn the power of manifestation, you quickly realize how important it is to stay upbeat, to stay positive, and when you are in a bad mood or a funk, to figure out a way to quickly get out of it so that you don't manifest more negative stuff into your life.
Love it. So reading, affirmations, and manifestation. And there's a great book by, you may have heard of Louise Hay, and it's
yes.
You Can Heal Your Life.
Yes.
Just a tremendous read. If I tell anybody if there's one book in the world in your life you read, that would be my recommendation. And, you know, that's for life stuff.
Yes.
You know what I mean? What would be your one recommendation? Like, this is the book everybody should read, whether life, business, you pick one.
There's so many, but I would say Shad Helmstedter's What You Say When You Talk to Yourself is a huge one. Like the power of what you're saying to yourself. The one person we talk to all day long is ourselves. The life you live right this second, for anybody listening, is a manifestation of the thoughts you've had about your life over the last 3, 5, 10 years. So if you don't like where you are right now, you need to work on changing the stories that you're telling yourself in your head. And that book is great for helping you do that.
That's awesome. And I have to share, with Louise Hay's book, I'll tell you, I was dealing with shoulder issue, with a shoulder pain. I could not get rid of it. It was bothering me for months. I finally went to the doctor. The doctor sent me to a specialist. They couldn't find anything wrong. They did x-rays. A friend of mine said, hey, did you look in the back of the book and see what it means with shoulder pain, right? Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, basically what it's saying is it's stress, it's carrying too much on your shoulders.
Wow.
And there's an affirmation, and it says, the affirmation is, I easily flow with change. My life is divinely guided in the right direction. No kidding, no joke, no exaggeration. I started saying that affirmation, and within 3 days, my shoulder pain is gone, and it is still gone. It's amazing, amazing. Whether it's in my head or not, it makes no difference. The shoulder pain is gone. Is that amazing or what?
That is amazing. I believe all of it, because, I mean, our minds are so powerful that we manifest whatever we have going on in our minds.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Stacey, I appreciate your time. What is the one thing you want all of our listeners to take from this interview today?
That you can be, do, and have anything if you are really good at honing in on your reach, which is both kinds, that big, massive dream that scares you, and also building a powerful network of advocates that are committed to helping you achieve your dream.
This is One More Sale.
If you love podcasts, I'm certain you're going to love audiobooks, and Audible.com is the world's largest platform of audiobooks. If you're interested in checking out the book we talked about today for free in audio, just go to davidsfreebook.com. Yes, again, davidsfreebook.com will get you a free 30-day trial on Audible. And don't forget to check out our sponsors, Direct Mortgage Loans, at www.directmortgageloans.com, or feel free to give them a call, 888-604-2525. And don't forget to mention Path to Mastery.
You are listening to One More Sale with your host, David I. Hill, author of the Sales Playbook. Get your copy at www.thesalesplaybook.net.